You're listening to the Business Communicators.
Thomas, another thing that's really been in the news the last week or so has been Reddit. And I love Reddit. I think it's a great source for information, interaction. Granted, we're talking about the online world. I think you've got to take things on there with a grain of salt at times, to source truth versus exaggerations, news versus speculation. But Reddit, their CEO, Steve Huffman, recently announced that they were going to be increasing their fees for API access. And so, this is not something new that happens for tech companies. I mean, we've seen Twitter increase their API fees. Instagram and Facebook have changed their API fees. And basically what this meant is there's a popular Reddit, I guess, viewing app called Apollo. It was actually mentioned during WWDC. Their CEO claims that in order to utilize the Reddit API starting July 1st, they would have to pay something like $20 million a year. And that essentially bankrupts their company. So they announced they would, I don't think they would be able to support the app until I think July 30th is when they announced they were going to cease their operations. So as a result, several Reddit pages, subreddits as they're called, announced that they were going to do a blackout for 48 hours, which meant that a lot of these forums where you go and communicate, share information. The one that I like is the Houston subreddit. It's great to get local news. You wouldn't be able to access it, even if you were a member of the page. They were set to private, or the content was completely removed. You couldn't post. And it was done for about 48 hours. That was the intention, right? To kind of send a message to Reddit that, you need to fight for that little guy, that capitalism is bad. Problem is, the Reddit CEO basically, issued a statement basically slamming the protest leaders who are these moderators of the pages, saying that he'll change the rules that favor landed gentry, basically saying that the user protest on Reddit this week is led by a minority of moderators and doesn't have wide support. And so, these moderators who have ultimate power on Reddit decided, well, we're going to continue the blackout then. And so that left a lot of users very upset and frustrated that they couldn't access this information, that they couldn't use the platform as a resource. Of course, some of these moderators tried to, move over to Discord as their, alternative, which, just the structure of Discord is chaotic. And then Reddit, I think, came out on Thursday and said, look, if these, moderators aren't going to, lift these blackouts, we'll get rid of them. That there needs to be more sense of democratic take on Reddit, right? That these moderators need to be held accountable. And I don't know if you use Reddit like I do, but I fully side with Reddit on this. Like, it's a business. You've got to be able to make money, right? Whether you're a private company or you're a public company, if you're charging for your API, do it. If there's an app out there that can afford the 20 million or whatever that fee is, then they will be sustainable, right? But if your only business model is relying on a cheap or free API, then you probably don't have the best business model. And then these moderators who try to consolidate all this power, it's a bad look. And I did check right before we started recording. The Houston Reddit, as of this morning, is now live again. It's no longer private. But one change is the moderators are now hidden. So you can't see who the moderators are now. And, last week you could. So I think it's interesting. Just kind of want to hear your thoughts on this whole Reddit situation.
So I know you and I have gone round and round about Reddit versus Twitter being the one who breaks the news and who's using what. So for our listeners, I'm going to go just take a little step back. Reddit is just a mega website, and you can kind of go in and you can type whatever subject you want, hashtag anything you want, and then it brings up basically a forum for those topics. Wall Street Bets is another one that's really big that has affected the stock market. I use it a lot. I've been following a lot of what's going on in Ukraine and Russia and those kind of things, because it is basically anybody can put it in there. And then when Austin says a moderator, basically it's an individual. Sometimes it's the person who created the thread or the subject matter. Sometimes it's kind of appointed by Reddit, and they're supposed to go through and make sure that, you're not doing hate speech and other things along those lines. But granted, with Reddit, you can also have not safe for work stuff as well. And so I like it because it is literally the original social media channel. Hey, here's where you can get on there. Here's where you can talk. To your point, I think that these moderators who either are getting paid by being an influencer somewhere, form or fashion.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know that for sure.
Well, they're not getting paid by Reddit. It's
no,
free
they're
from
not
Reddit.
getting paid for Reddit.
Yeah,
but
they're able to grow their online presence as a result of it. Yeah.
And so they think they have all the power, but yet Reddit is very well established. Parler is trying to be the same way, but to your point, it is a mess, and like it hurts my head just to think about going to that social media platform. And then the business lines. If your business is just a pass-through so that people can look at Reddit and post on Reddit, you probably need to rethink your business model. I'm on the same page for you as Reddit. I have seen a lot more advertising on Reddit as of lately, which I'm really okay with, because it's no different than the ad showing up in your Twitter feed or your Facebook feed or your Insta feed or your TikTok feed. Knowing who you are, what you're looking at, what your thoughts are on each one of it. I hope Reddit does take a step back and try to ensure at least the paid promotion advertising stuff doesn't go the way of the Facebooks, where you can pull back and you can buy it under a veil and you can promote falsehoods and those kind of things.
Yeah. I think maybe a business model for Reddit, and I don't know if they've considered this, is a subscription, right? So if you want to get rid of those ads, which I guess is a plus on apps like Apollo. I don't know that there are ads on Apollo. You could pay $5 a month to remove ads. I mean, people will pay that. It might not be a lot, but you're going to get some revenue from there. Like YouTube, for example, you can watch YouTube, you could watch ads in each video, or you could pay, what is it, $5-10 a month or something like that for YouTube Premium. I pay that. I watch a lot of content on YouTube. I think it's a great platform. I'm more than happy to pay not to see those ads. So that's a revenue source for Google. That could be something for Reddit. And I'm actually going to pull this quote real quick from it was a June 12th story in Axios by Sarah Fisher, who was actually our first guest on the podcast. She's a media reporter. She talks about the API. And she says the free access meant that so I guess Reddit was giving away their API for free. She writes, the free access meant that almost any developer could access and leverage Reddit's vast pool of data to train artificial intelligence algorithms leveraged by big tech firms such as Google, Microsoft, or OpenAI. Quote, the Reddit corpus of data is really valuable, Reddit CEO and co-founder Steve Huffman told the New York Times in an April interview, but we don't need to give all of that value to some of the largest companies in the world for free. He's absolutely right. Data is king.
Data is king. And if you don't know what the product is, you're the product. I get that when you start off, you open up the APIs for free to get market share, to get people to use it, to do those things. $20 million sounds a little excessive, just personally, because that's a whole lot of API calls. That's almost real-time API calls, and that should be taxing your server. If you're worried about paying $20 million for API calls, you need to also be looking at your server banks, because you're probably overpaying for that as well.
Yeah, and again, I haven't seen anything from Reddit on the cost or how they came up with that number. Maybe that number is too high. Maybe it should be a little bit lower. But again, Reddit as a company has the right to charge for its information. You shouldn't be giving away your value for free. Even as a communicator, you shouldn't be offering your services for free constantly. Like if you want to do some pro bono work, to help people out, great. If you want to help out certain causes for free, great. But you can't have a sustainable career if you give away all of your talent and experience for zero sum.
And as for the moderators, I've got very minimal sympathy for them, because, like I said, they're not getting paid by Reddit, but they might be getting paid from other ones. they've basically done the same thing as they've latched on for some sort of fame and fortune from
Well,
there.
yeah, and one last note to kind of close out this conversation, but Reddit did say, I think on Thursday of last week, they were going to be removing the moderators who didn't lift the blackouts. Um, and that's going to be a huge ego boost for a lot of these people. Now they're thinking about um, unveiling policies where the community can vote moderators out, and that's been a huge concern for a lot of uh, users in the past. Is that these moderators have the ultimate control. There's no transparency on what's going on. If they feel that something is against their, let's take politics, for example. If they
Yeah.
disagree with something politically, they will remove the post and ban users. So there's no transparency. It's up to individual judgment. And that's another concern as well.
And I echo that as well. Is one person ultimate power is not good.
You've been listening to the Business Communicators.